It was very simple. He said that we don't come up with ideas, it's the ideas which come up with us. So, like, it was meaning like this, that there are ideas floating around in the universe and they find the right receptor. So, that reception means how attentive you are at that moment about that idea. Is it
Yeah,
making
but
sense?
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Hi, Joseph.
You
But
know,
we are talking about the immediacy of experience, the tick level of the experience, and I mean, I'm just bringing us back to that in a very stubborn way because I find that a very interesting thing to talk about. I think it's a I mean, I don't get to talk about it often, the immediacy of experience, and I'd like to talk about that. What does everyone feel about that?
Then I think you have to expand more on what do you mean by tick level
and
experience.
Yeah, so
experience.
Raja, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I want to know first that when we are saying experience, are we meaning that anything and everything that we are experiencing on a physical level, or something which we can make meaning out of consciously?
Before you know what is the difference between physical and meaning, at a very basic level, your
Instantaneous.
yeah, at a very basic level, your neural network is a live wire. So as things are happening in the cosmos,
Hmm.
you are in a way sensitive to them.
Yeah.
At that level, we are calling it experience.
So by that logic, maybe the time required for the least number of neurons to fire, that might be the instant, or for the minimum possible activity in my brain.
Or the very first neuron that fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make it less technical, what I would say is we don't care about the number of neurons as far as we are getting to the number of neurons that we're sensitive about. So what I'm saying is, if there is a chunk of 25 neurons, and that's the minimum resolution of our experience,
Yeah. Yeah.
then that is the minimum resolution. We don't know anything finer than that.
Yeah. So now who decides this minimum resolution, or who decides the quantity of this minimum resolution? Now,
We don't have to decide it. It's
Yeah.
already there, right?
It happens.
Yeah.
But isn't the way we determine it through
yeah.
meaning?
No, we can either measure it or speculate over it, experimentally. So in the sense that if you're sitting in a forest, or you're sitting on a street, and if you play a game which is the finest thing that you are sensitive to, which is the finest thing that you are able to observe in this environment.
Right. And that's like granularity, and it brings back to the point to attention. Like, how fine is your attention?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you can be attentive to details which others can't even imagine.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, that again brings us to the hierarchy. No, you cannot be a flat attentive all the
Sure.
time.
So Akshay, that's right. So in the sense, there is a very clear hierarchy. What is at the top?
Yeah.
What do you
is at
think?
the
Why?
top?
I don't understand why hierarchy.
No, I mean, what Akshay is talking about is what we had mentioned earlier, in the sense that of the things that affect us, there are some things that affect us more and some things that affect us less. Our attention is not equal in terms of the kinds of stimulus it spreads itself for, right?
Is that generalized or specific to each individual?
I mean, the concept is generalized. Like, for each individual, what are you experiencing at a given moment, and why do you experience one thing more than another thing? at a given moment.
Ah.
Cheryl, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm listening.
So, what do you think? How can we get at this granular sensitivity? How can we define the tick?
I think that attention spans are definitely they are dependent on individuals. For starters, I have a very short attention span. So you've got to keep on, I just keep on flitting. So if something doesn't grasp me, I'm already thinking something else. And
Sitting together.
another point I wanted to, I think it has come up. I think attention span or attention is a little different, according to me, to attention to detail. They
Right.
might be
So,
a little
what's the
different.
difference? What's the difference?
Uh, I guess attention is something, it could be something which you see, observe, and the processing could happen much later. Attention to detail is seeing something and observing minutely that, okay, there is something to this detail, and everyone has that to a different degree. It's how much we want to see of it also. What is our experience? What is our exposure? Or what kind of perceptions we have, right? So
So, you would say that the attention to detail is about training, and
no,
attention span is about capacity.
I wouldn't say training. It wouldn't be right to say training. It would be something as to uh, it's not like education if you mean training, but
It's
it's more,
is it habit?
it's not it could be a habit if you have OCD, but it could also be something where I think you generally some people get it naturally, in fact.
Yeah, it's
But
construction.
OCD, I think OCD is a very good association to make here, because the duration of the moment for someone who is compulsive, is far shorter.
Yeah,
What do you think?
okay, I get it.
So the
Yeah,
number of things that bother you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You were saying something, Satya.
I'm sorry, I don't want to digress too much, but it's like, what if you're an ant? What is your attention span then? In the sense, like, if you see the world like an ant, are the details, what are the, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that.
Hello, if I can add something to this, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. We can hear
Yeah.
you.
So
Go on.
I think for attention, I think you have to make like two distinctions. Like little bit you mentioned about attention like span and attention itself. So I think like, and now you mentioned the ant. So I think like one thing is attention on a kind of unconscious level where it works like a kind of stimulus and response. So that is the ant or something, right? They just react without thinking about it. But as humans, I think we have another like level, and we can consciously influence attention, and that's more a kind of like process which is, I think, directed by us, and we can control it, right? It's like when in the school someone tells you don't pay attention, you should pay attention to the teacher. You are paying attention to something else. So this is something you are controlling. But there is also the level which you don't control, which is like a reaction to some danger, or when you hear a sound or something. It's just connected to your senses directly. So I think we should kind of look at this like two different ways which come together in attention. And the fact that one you can influence and one you cannot influence, it also relates to how you perceive the time.
Right. So, we talked about these two kinds of attention. One that is before thought can happen. So one which is not cultural.
Yeah.
And one which is instinctive. So what you're talking about when you say a sensitivity to danger.
Yeah.
So that is the other. But I think at this point, most of us are interested in the idea of attention before thought, because I don't know. That's about me, because that's the kind of attention that I personally know the least about.
So attention before thought is kind of sounding like what is going on in the unconscious. which you are not aware of, right? In the unconscious brain.
Yes.
Or like an
I mean, if we believe in the unconscious.
No, it's not belief. No, it's like the construction of the brain is such that, of course, I mean, it's still up for research at this point, but there is a part of the brain which isn't like the frontal lobe versus the, the lizard brain area, whatever.
No, so
Well,
you
I
are
think
talking
that's
about the
why-
expressive. You're talking about the expression and the latency. Are you talking about that?
No, I'm saying more like things that, like fight and flight responses. Where do they come from? Survival, like the very primitive brain area.
Yeah, that's what I think Joseph said with the
Yeah.
uncultured attention, no?
Right. Yeah.
So something is more like a reflex, right? Like your iris will get bigger and smaller based on the amount of light coming in or something. Something
Yeah.
is almost like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, like your heart
completely
beating.
under our control.
So Joseph, what would you think about this kind of attention? So let's say, your experience before thought, the one that you cannot control, the attention that you cannot control. What
Yeah.
do you think about that?
Well, that is before thought. So.
Yeah. So what's before thought?
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
You mean like how fast it is, or
We can, I think, we can reflect on its quality, on the quality of that attention, and through that reflection we'll find out lots of things. We'll find out about the length, we'll find out about its intensity, we'll find out, I don't know, other stuff.
I think it's very much connected to our senses, right? It depends on some kind of like input from the outside, like whether it's like vision or sound or something. So it's
No, but that's what Satya is talking about, not being the case, in the sense that there's stuff happening in your psyche, there's stuff happening in your subconscious, in that sense, unconscious.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
So
want to
Satya's,
tie
I'm
in-
confusing unconscious and subconscious as for a moment thinking they're the same things, because subconscious is a fabrication, which I don't
Right.
believe in.
Okay.
So I think it's in our
I'm
mind.
sorry, I just wanted to tie in also what Akshay said about the idea, what you talked about that filmmaker, and that brought to mind Carl Jung's collective unconscious, which is also a theory, which is, I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, but I'm biased towards Carl Jung. I mean, I would.
Me too.
I mean, I'm biased, and I would place my bets there.
Me too.
I don't believe in. I have not read Carl Jung and all, so I won't go into it. But I just believe this entire idea of, I think what Joseph also was defining, that we can distinguish the attention in two ways. One is maybe a universal attention, which we are part of, and one can be this cultured attention. So as I think I can see you are more attentive towards the universal attention right now.
So when you call it universal attention, do you mean the attention that the cosmos is paying to us?
I think so, because that's where then if you are denying unconscious everything, then we become part of that universal attention in a way, because
No,
everybody experiences.
But does the cosmos have a mind?
No, I don't think so. It has a mind. You cannot define attention only as a mind. No.
No, is there a kind of attention? Does a machine pay attention to you? So will you say that the computer pays attention to you when you use it?
No. See, don't go on objects. Keep on as the concepts. No, you yourself denied objects. So I'm not saying why machine. I'm just saying there is a thought of a universal attention, and that you can be part of.
No. I'm just I'm just finding it difficult to imagine universal attention. A cosmic attention.
Because as Joseph said, and I think earlier also somebody had said that fear can be a universal attention, or reflexes, as Joseph had said. It is a universal attention in a way. You don't know what happens to your eye when it starts contracting and all. But these are physical features we know of. But there are many other ways also where you are part of a universal attention. You many times you don't know before a thought comes to you, your heart is beating, you are anxious. There are many other kind of things which you don't know what is really happening, and that is more because of your universal attention being agitated.
And
So do
that I
you?
would call that the unconscious.
Since he is denying it, so
No, we were confused about subconscious and unconscious.
So
Unconscious.
How's
subconscious,
it different from instinct?
instinct is unconscious.
Is it?
I think the way now as Kai described it, I think it's close to the idea of the instinct, or yeah. So I think it's something like inherent to every organism, maybe. Yeah, it's like a kind
yeah,
of
yeah, that's what I meant by calling it universal attention.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And I think it also ties to this idea of like kind of like frame rate, or like minimum minimum amount of like reactivity, or minimum amount of time needed to of a cycle or something, right, inside of this.
yeah, it's very interesting because just before the talk opened, I was thinking of this frame rate, and I was thinking there is somewhere a basic minimum finite frame rate running. Otherwise, we won't see anything.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, that depends on our physicality, right? Like, we are just measuring objects in some ways. We are just instruments, and we resonate with what happens around us. But that resonance depends on what material we are constructed of. And that material is physical, it's mental thoughts, whatever, right? Our culture, our energy, our metabolism.
Yeah, but that means you can manipulate with the speed of the frame rate. That's not what I'm saying. But there is already a motion there. There is already a finite speed running. You can fasten it or maybe even slow it.
Okay.
No, but can you change it consciously?
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, while you were discussing about this, I ran into a parallel thought process while I was listening to it. So what I think is that the universal frame rate or universal attention, what we were talking about. So it's not that it has any frame rate. Maybe it's always attentive and infinitely attentive all the time. It's our perspective through which we are trying to give it a measurement angle, through which we are trying to measure the frame rate. So what I mean to say is the I'm not able to explain it properly.
No, that's I think I understand quite.
Yeah, I also
I
understood.
mean, I think it's quite a nice idea.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of that, it's always a parallel track, and
Yeah.
you know, it just breaks out now and then, but it's always active.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what we spoke about yesterday about the infinite always being there, but us having our frames, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and coming in through the holes.
Yeah.
But does talking about the infinite take us towards take us into a spiritual direction?
Maybe.
You know, or it could, I don't know, it depends on what spiritual is. I mean, are we going towards religion or what is spiritual?
No, I mean the idea of spiritual would basically be defined. It would start making sense in terms of a belief in the spirit. You know, like, do you think there's something called a spirit that exists?
It doesn't have to be spiritual. I mean, the idea of the infinite is, it crosses all studies. It starts with mathematics to art to everything. So I don't know if you would, I don't know what is the point in trying to label it or try to find whether it is spiritual or not. And I think each person's definition of what is spiritual also will vary.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Me too.
No, but what is the content? What is your object in a spiritual?
I think for me, spiritual means basically like transcendent. It means there is something which transcends your physical existence.
Yeah, that is actually a clearer way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't bring in a
Yeah,
ghost.
but it brings us to yesterday's thing, no? That the frame, the transcendence is at the edge of the frame.
True.
It's
How does
the
it bring us to that?
because that's where you are transcending, no? You are going beyond what you are.
Yes. I think I agree. Yeah. So it's
Right.
like there is something like even if like you disappear, your frame disappears. So something will be left, right? That's the idea. Yeah. So I see the connection.
Yeah.
So if we come back to the edge, then where we were yesterday was discomfort keeps us on the edge.
Right.
So where do we want to do something with the thought?
I actually was wanting to talk a little more about, all of us talk a little more about the holes. What is a hole?
The hole? Acha, what are the holes?
Right. How do we make them, like, why do they happen, or not even why, but what are they?
Joseph just mentioned this thing of transcendence and what is left behind. And sometimes I wonder if that which is left behind, like a trace, can be the whole as well.
Right. So when you pour something in, what gets left behind when you pour it out? So if that is a whole.
Right, that the nothingness of that thing is a whole.
Yeah, I mean it will usually be estimated in terms of percentile points.
Yeah, it's also like the inverse of what we were trying to say yesterday. Because I
Yeah.
think it has to be looked both ways. It has to be self-reflective also.
Yeah, it's like that song which said that every world has a crack because that's where the light comes in. So when the light comes in, the light is what you're talking about. You're right. You inverse the idea.
And which you were talking about yesterday about looking at the frame from the outside.
Yeah. But I mean, because that means that instead of talking about going out, we also have to acknowledge that it's coming in.
Yes.
And that's uncomfortable.
Right. So that is the agony of experience.
Right.
Cheryl, you there?
Yes, I am there.
If you've been finding it difficult to jump in, if you just want to take some time.
No, actually, I just, while you all were talking about these holes, what I just felt is if you really think that can there be something like a hole truly? Because the minute, if you take, for example, or a glass or something, you put something in it and then you remove it, there's always something left behind. So is there something really like a hole? If you think of an experience, something affects you, there's always something left behind that changes you. So is there something really like a hole? Do holes really exist?
I guess, Cheryl, what I would look at it is like that change in you is the whole.
Okay.
Because now it's leading you somewhere else, or it's showing you something new.
So then it doesn't really become a whole. It actually changes you and morphs you into something else. But you
So
still
that,
have some matter in some sort of content in you. A whole, by definition, would mean emptiness or nothingness. So can something truly be nothing? Can we
I mean,
really?
a hole would be a puncture. It would be
Yeah.
a cavity.
Yeah, but there's truly nothing which is empty, right? There's always space. So even a black hole, it absorbs a lot of matter. So what is holes? Do they really exist? Isn't it a way? Isn't this like perspective? It's a perspective. Right? It's
yes, and I think what I meant by whole was when that perspective starts cracking because you learned something new or now you're seeing something new
Hmm.
and you're seeing that something new through your current perspective, through a crack in your current perspective. I guess that's what I meant by a whole.
So probably crack could be
Right.
better.
Crack is a better word, you're saying.
Not okay to a degree. To a degree. I mean, yeah.
So, Satya, are you okay with replacing the word hole with a crack, the word crack?
Okay, no
Crack
problem.
also has a negative connotation to it.
What's the negative connotation?
Crack generally we don't associate with things which.
Being whole with a W, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but then, is there anything unbroken anywhere? Is there anything whole? I would more easily accept that everything is cracked a little bit than
Yeah.
accept that everything is whole.
Holy? Everything is holy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Joseph, going back to just going back to you, in the sense if you want to add something to this.
Yeah. Like I think I mean the I feel crack is more like I relate it to like like you said something is breaking or something. So maybe you can use some more. The whole is a little bit more neutral, but I mean as a metaphor it maybe is not that precise. But maybe you can find some other word which is neutral but expresses this kind of thing that there is some kind of like. It's always there, yeah. It's not like something like you make a hole, but I think it is true, like that. There is always there are some kind of cracks, yeah. But I wouldn't associate it like with something breaking or something being a hole and then being one, like being a hole, like one. I mean, and then having the cracks. But I would say there is always some kind of like, you know, places you can kind of see through, right? It's more like you discover some places to see through. You don't create the holes, I think.
But why do you think we should be neutral in the sense? Do you think if things are subjective or if things have the color of sentiment, like we were talking about the day before, do you think they become less absolute?
I think it expresses some value judgment. Yes, so it is less absolute.
Right. So it's less objective.
Yeah.
I would add another thing here that I think if you're talking about crack, your entire frame can crack, but whole is a better thing because it's an experience and it's sometimes it's also a self-healing whole.
Yeah.
So Cheryl, are you okay with going back to the word whole and discard, for the moment the word crack?
I didn't really have like a disagreement as to what you call it. I was just asking a rhetorical question as to can a whole really be a whole? Is a whole ever whole?
No,
No,
I
it
got
can be
another
a self.
image in my mind, which is like a hole is like a filter. You know how we make those, like when you make chaklis, you have that thing which has holes in it, and then you press it.
Perforation.
Yeah, perforation. Like a filter-like thing, you know.
I think I will agree with Joseph and that it can be a self-healing hole. Let's not look at it as a permanent hole has happened in the frame. It
So
can
it's
also
like
shrink back.
the frame is like a tubeless tire.
Yeah.
I find cracks more organic.
Right. It's a
Yeah.
more material property.
No, but that's what I said. The crack can happen to the entire frame. Your entire frame can crack and dismantle, and you may have another frame. But when we are talking holes in the frame, it can be a very organic, self-healing hole, like you said, tubeless tire. It's interesting. I was thinking about it. So your little gas goes out, and then you again come back. So your frame remains, but you don't disintegrate.
With the crack, it sounds like there has to be destruction and there has to be a movement forward. But with as Akshay is describing it, it sounds like the whole with a W can remain, can regain itself.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to move anywhere.
Yeah, and I think it would be important to hold on to the whole, the entirety of the entity, because if we fragment the whole, if we go into a fragmentation of the one, then we'll have to deal with multiple agents in a world that that will trouble us because I mean, I don't think it's possible to conceptualize multiple agents. And
What kind of multiple agents?
it's like so you have the concept of Advaita, which is
Right.
not two. So
Yeah,
not
yeah,
two means one.
Yeah.
So in Advaita, it is impossible to think of the other. There is no other in Advaita. And I have not been able to shake off the influence of Advaita actually in my perspective. And I would like it to be shaken off if if we can talk about it.
So Advaita means non-dual, right? So there is no boundary.
Yeah, but that's the English translation. In the sandhi of the Sanskrit word itself, it's not two. It's not that.
Two, right.
Yeah. So non-dual means, in a way, it doesn't bring in very clearly that it's not two. Actually, not two would be a better translation.
Not two can be many also.
Yeah, no, we were thinking about it a few years back, and the not two, if you're not thinking integers, if you're thinking float point values.
What is that? What do you mean?
0.1, 0.001, 0.0.
Okay.
If you're going into decimals,
Right.
then all of infinity could exist between 0 and 1.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
This is the Zeno's paradox or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, so there are innumerable holes in every hole.
Yeah.
So I think the innumerable holes in every hole is a good idea of the whole.
That's like the Mandelbrot set.
Yeah, it's fractal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where does the Advaita come here?
No, so I'm saying that for us to discard the whole, the entirety of the entity. So if we were going to discard, the word, what Akshay just said, that you cannot imagine that there's something which is broken and then needs to be reconstructed, because if there is something broken and it needs to be reconstructed, and if there is a cyclical nature of the whole, then when the whole is not whole, what is it? So it becomes more about a dual model of the universe, like the yin yang, or the dark energy and the energy itself.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. No, it's a self-healing hole. It exists for a moment and then it closes back, and you again have another hole.
I don't know, this need to be reconstructed is, yeah, like Akshay says, it's self-healing, so it doesn't have to reconstruct itself to what it was. It can become whole in itself even as a fragment.
Yeah, I feel like there are two things here. One is conceptualizing the perspective, which cracks and then goes forward to the next shape, and then there is an entity which has holes in it, which morphs itself, like it has holes which heal themselves. So I feel like there are two things here. When you
I
talk
think
about
they are the same thing. What I was saying is that the frame can crack, but
right,
the holes in the frame can self-heal. Depends.
Yeah, but I'm basically wondering why would it self-heal? What makes it want to
No,
self-heal?
no.
Is there a
That's
mind
precisely what
or
I'm saying.
yeah?
That's precisely what I'm saying, that it depends on your intention or your experience, whether it can remain a permanent hole or it can be a self-healing hole. But ideally, if you have to run on a tubeless tire, it has to be a self-healing hole, otherwise your tire will go flat.
No, but
so is it
yeah.
is it a self-healing tire that is running over a road of glass sheets, which each fragment, and one cracks, then you go to the next one, and
Not glass sheet, but full of thorns. The field full of
or
thorns,
something
and
like that. Yeah,
yeah, so it will bring us to our point of yesterday, discomfort.
yeah, and yeah.
So puncture is experience.
Puncture is experience. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you had talked about novelty of experiences too. So it's like something you're experiencing. Yeah.
But hey, there's also this aspect of poetic license in this whole exercise. So if you want to see it as a crack or if you want to see it as a hole, it is finally going to give you different experiences and different interpretations accordingly.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that is going to change depending on how one chooses to
Yeah, I think what
see it.
Raja had said, and I think even Joseph had agreed. When we imagine a crack, we imagine a very brittle surface, and when we are imagining a hole, we are imagining a very fluid surface. So either then we go and define what surface we are at, and then we define whether it's a crack or a hole. But I think I would go with more of the fluidity because our experience, our everything is fluid. So
So,
I would,
but the fluid doesn't have within itself any idea of the violent, and I think the nature of a surface, like you very helpfully brought it in, the nature of a surface definitely involves violence in its puncturing in the
so puncturing a hole is also violence, but as Joseph had also said that it's not negative.
but
Crack.
if you would puncture a liquid, it won't be violent, it will be fluid.
Oh, how do you know?
I mean, the puncture itself is where the violence is felt.
Yeah, the moment of the puncture is violence.
The act
No,
of
but
the puncture.
for the fluid, I'm saying for a fluid, would it be violent?
Uh, we are talking about the moment of the puncture. We are not
I mean,
talking
the
about
surface
the
tension
surface.
breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm saying you take a glass of water and you pour it down a sieve. So there is a surface with lots of holes. As much water as you pour on it, it's going to end up at the bottom, right? So there is no loss.
Okay.
So why would the liquid mind a puncture, it has no issues, So there is no violence in the sense there is no loss.
Yeah, but that's precisely what I said, that then you define the surface. The crack would go on for a brittle surface and the puncture would go on for a fluid surface. So then you define what exact surface are we looking at.
So, Joseph, what would you say the surface is like?
Surface is like. I think this is like we are getting too concrete for discussing, this, because yeah, of course we can say surface is, so we could, I think, like now you mentioned, it would be good to say, yeah, maybe crack is the thing for the solid, and the puncture is more for the liquid. But yeah, I think it's what is the surface like? I think it's fluid. I think it's fluid. If you want to like agree on some the how to say, yeah, field. So I think it is fluid, because really our experience, everything is kind of right. It's not like discontinuous. It's because crack is very much like related to the physical material. So I think for us, if we talk about our experience and about things like that, so I think that is very fluid and continuous. No matter whether it breaks or cracks or something, or you change your perspective. So I think it is always a kind of like ongoing process. It's never binary, actually, I think.
I beg to differ on this. I have a parallel view on this. I think that the nature of the surface depends on the nature of the person, nature of the observer. Like, for example, if I'm having an experience which is shaping my next frame. So if I am of a rigid frame, to speak in another words, if my surface is brittle, then that experience which is pushing my existing frame will leave a mark on it. Then I'll look at it as cracks on my rigid frame. Otherwise, if they are self-healing experiences, then it might not be fluid surface. Oh, sorry, it might not be a brittle surface. Then I'll say I have a fluid surface. So maybe it depends on the self-healing nature of the cracks, which decides or which determines the nature of the surface, or vice versa.
But when you say that it's about the observer, you again take it away from the neutrality. You make it less absolute. So
and I think, Raja, what you said, again, you cannot be brittle all through your experiences. No, you cannot be solid, and that's why Joseph makes more sense, that we are always changing. So it is more fluid. Even if we are solid at some point, we are liquid at some point. So we are in a continuous fluidity. It is more a fluid and not a flat.
But if you switch the words around, if for the word solid you use the word fluid, and if for the word fluid you use the word solid, I mean, I'm saying that at this point I think we're also getting trapped in a language game.
Yeah.
It's a cultural
I
thing.
don't think so. No. What Joseph meant by this interchange in the surface only, I'm not saying that it's solid, liquid, or whatever.
Yeah,
just
but the question that Joseph had, that at this point we are getting very technical or specific about describing the surface. I mean, I'm saying that is happening because we're getting lost in words to try and describe it, and words mean different things to different people.
Yeah, I guess when I said whole, I had talked about the rift. Basically, what is it that takes us from one frame to the next? And that's what I meant by whole at that point.
Okay, and I would, if you hadn't shared this, I would have always thought that a whole means, something, a circular puncture that you cut through a football.
Well, okay.
I mean, it helps to understand what's your model of a whole.
I mean, if you take the concept of it, even if we leave that aside, crack or hole, it's the concept of something that is a rift. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about that, or if we want to continue talking about what we were so far.
No, it's we'll talk about what we are talking about.
Maybe the Surface could be dynamic also. Maybe it might not be completely fluid all through the time, might not be completely solid all through the time.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's
so
what Akshay was trying to say too.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying that we won't have words to describe this, but struggling to find words is productive.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to add a general comment, which is basically about levels of abstraction, because I think always right when we talk, even in language already, we are using some kind of level of abstraction. So this kind of thing of either like binary oppositions or discussing what is something like. So we can in a way we can only talk in abstractions. And I think like now when we are talking about some kind of like materiality of it. So I think we are kind of linking some levels which are difficult to link. Yeah. So I think as someone mentioned, it doesn't really I think matter so much on the word, because I think we should accept that all the words are kind of approximation of something we are talking about.
Yeah, so going back to the concept, like Satya said, that we look at the whole as a rift.
Yeah.
So we look at a rift. When I hear the word rift, I imagine two land masses floating away from each other. What do you imagine when you use the word rift? So what are you approximating?
It's very interesting what you're saying, floating away from each other, but if you look from the other way around, they are also coming to each other. If you're talking in the what has happened to the formation of the continents, they might be seen.
We don't know if they are on a spherical body, So I'm saying that just their going away communicates the idea of rift. So if we look at the abstraction, at the levels of abstraction, then it makes sense to look at what is it that you're trying to approximate.
And to me, that is like it's like moving towards knowledge is what I see.
So if you drift apart enough, then you will discover the knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know if that distance of drifting will actually determine it. I feel that any kind of movement, any kind of rift, which defines a movement, is a sign towards getting some kind of knowledge.
Yeah. They're getting some new inputs. Because of the
Yes.
rift, there are some new inputs, yeah.
And I would still call it a spherical experience, because suppose you are going through a tunnel, suppose you are in a metro, and since we are talking about perspectives, what you see in front of you, when it crosses you, it seems to be going apart, and when it goes behind you, it again collapses back into another joinery, like that.
No, but it's imagining a spherical world.
No, I'm just saying the entire experiential world around. Yeah, I'm imagining a spherical world. If you are saying that don't imagine a sphere, I would still imagine a sphere.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, Akshay, even if you see two parallel lines, which is the track, like you said, going forward they seem to meet, behind also they are meeting.
Yeah. So we are, in any case, in any kind of experience, we are moving in a spherical formation.
But when you look at the tracks and when you see them meeting in the distance, it's because you're in a spherical world. No, the way perspective works actually doesn't matter if you're on a flat ground.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying that they are meeting or not meeting. They seem to be meeting.
Yeah, but why do they seem to be meeting?
Because that's how we are perceiving it. No, this is what
because we have binocular vision.
No. It's, even if you have binocular, even if you can see with a telescope on the tracks, they will not seem to be. They won't be meeting physically, but they would always seem to be meeting. You get it?
But then I think what Prayas is saying is that this phenomenon is because we are on a spherical surface, which is finite.
or our
Is that what
vision
you're
is
saying,
spherical.
guys?
I think
Yeah,
what Prayas was trying to say is we have binocular vision, saying that our eyes have convex lenses.
Okay, so it's not the sphericality of where the parallel lines are,
Yeah,
but because of the observer.
yeah.
Yeah, so the entire surface depends on the observer, how you're observing it.
That's interesting. I would never have thought about it this way, in the sense of being able to bring it back to the observer in some way that it didn't seem like you were limiting the idea.
So I'm sorry, I hate to admit I don't know this, but if we had an infinitely flat surface and two parallel lines on it, would we perceive it that they are meeting somewhere? We would perceive it that they meet, right? The parallel lines, even if the surface is flat.
So,
Yeah.
like Malvika, do you know about how perspective works in drawing? Like, how do we model perspective in representation?
There is no singular way, and that's
Like
why I think
The Cartesian method.
I don't know. I just like what Satya just spoke about, the two parallel lines on an infinite plane. I will not assume that they meet.
No, but what do we see? I guess, I suppose we will.
I don't know. I would choose to move along with the lines. I will not try to see it from one point of view. And somehow I have always been comfortable with moving and not fixing myself to one place to try to see what is going on as a consequence of what is left from here. Because I find that too conclusive.
Okay.
So, and I don't know.
So,
And since you bring up
why would you be?
drawing,
You're asking Malvika that why would you be anywhere? You could keep moving and change your position. So the position of the observer is dynamic for you.
yeah, and that's why I think I like miniature paintings, and that's why to answer your question about drawing and perspective, you can just enter it from anywhere, and there isn't a single point of view perspective that is used in miniature painting, and
Right. So it gets cubist.
I don't know if you can call it cubist, because cubist is still referring to a kind of a perspective of how the world is seen and how you try to represent what is seen on the other side. What the miniature paintings actually do is address this aspect of knowledge, how you know a thing to be, how you know an object to be. So it goes a little more into an imagined perspective in parallel.
So it has nothing to do with observation.
No, it has. So I think it's a wonderful meeting point of the imagined and what is observed.
Okay, so it's a hybrid.
Yes.
So we don't know about what we will see if you're on that infinite flat land.
Yes, you won't know.
We don't know.
Yes.
I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine being on a flat land because my imagination is spherical.
No, we are on a flat land. There is one dimension which is flat, which is time.
Right.
Time is not flat.
The dimension, the way it is perceiving.
Yes, it's linear, you mean?
Yeah, so it's a flat surface.
Right.
Time is a flat surface. We can imagine being in time.
Right. Right. So if you use time as a surface on which you imagine yourself to be, then I can imagine lines not meeting ever.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that, Satya?
I'm trying to, yeah. I mean, I'm being limited by my vision because now I have that thing of binocular vision, and so I'm seeing like it's going to meet because of me. But if I remove that, then it's never going to meet.
Yeah, because we don't expect the past and the future to meet.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
past
at least
and
we can't
future
imagine it.
are, yeah, they're parallel lines that never meet.
What are the
Except
odds of any two random human beings on this world to meet?
there
There
would be
is,
some kind of, yeah.
yeah, there is that thing, right? Like you're 6 degrees separated from it,
Yeah,
this.
60 degrees of separation, but for it to actually happen, I'm talking of meeting.
But then that's what determines the statistical possibility. I mean, this is all, I don't know though.
And like we spoke about on the first day, statistics has noise. So
Yeah.
there might be a statistic that says that 70% of the people will meet 70% of the time. But then that still means that 30% of the people will never meet 30%
Exactly.
of the time. And 30% is a lot of people.
Yes.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, what's of noise value to statistics can be an entire world.
Yeah, correct.
So does that mean we can discard any kind of knowledge that's based on statistics because we don't know?
I don't know if we can discard. The reason being, we ourselves are limited. We ourselves approximate things as survival mechanisms. That's how we operate.
But do you think we use a statistical method or a toss the coin method?
I believe there is some kind of computation happening within the organism.
Right. So there is a statistical method. That's what you
I
said.
feel that way. Like there is a bunch of factors that are hitting you, and then somehow something approximates somewhere.
But then what about intuition?
Yeah, that's. I mean, there are
Intuition
people
is
who are.
intuition is the what we had discussed earlier, no? It's the universal attention.
No, did we think about that? We spoke of the universal attention as instinct, not as intuition.
Yeah, but I would put it in the same category.
Instinct and intuition. No.
No.
Intuitive is that which is not an instinct.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the universal attention.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
They
think
don't
this
overlap
is,
for me.
yeah, I think this is misheard production, and I totally agree to this. It makes a lot of sense to me to put intuition as universal attention, both of them
Yeah.
in one category. Yeah.
How does it make sense to you?
Uh, I personally don't find any other explanation for intuition. Like, what else could be called as intuition that you are attuned to the universal attention, or
But if you
you
think of
can
it, like
tap
it's a,
into the stimulus from the universal attention.
but that still sounds like some computation happening somewhere. I mean, these are unconscious inputs coming in, which compute and comes out as an intuition.
No,
And
that we agree that it is statistical. That we agree.
no, we didn't. We didn't agree, right?
That's
Like,
Yeah, I don't really agree because what we are talking about is intuition being the negative space of the statistical method.
no, but I think again what Satya is saying that computation, what she is also meaning is we are maybe not conscious of it. Again, sorry,
okay,
conscious,
yeah, yeah,
whatever. But there is
yeah.
always a computation going on.
Maybe that's one way of trying to think about it.
Joseph, would you think that intuition is computed? Where
I
does
think
intuition come
it's
from?
again. I think I play with words, but I think now what you mentioned that intuition and universal attention. I also feel there is something common. I think it's like like depends how you look at it, yeah, because it's like different words, I think, for the similar thing, because attention, I think, always includes for me this idea of like stimulus and response. So, I mean, it has some kind of reaction, while the other idea about the computation or something like more like background, yes, I mean, there is always something going on, and you could say it's some kind of like frequency or some kind of movement, yeah, what we discussed before. Yeah, definitely, I think it's there. And then you can say attention is more like a kind of outward manifestation, something you can observe maybe.
Yes.
But Jung would call intuition to be an expression of the collective subconscious, collective unconscious. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the collective unconscious is an idea that's similar to universal attention.
Yes. So it all comes together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can actually, you know, they can both those ideas can sit very well together.
Yeah. So I agree with that.
Yeah. So if we are stopping today at this thought that intuition is instinct, would that be a fair grasping of the gist of what we are? So, you know, I published these posters which compress the day's discussions into one sentence, right? But I don't discuss what that one sentence should be with all of us, and I just, you know, come up with those things, and I think we should talk about it. So
Yeah,
how would we? Yeah.
There's one sentence which I had written down while you were talking. Innumerable holes in every hole. It made a lot of sense to me.
Would it represent?
No, I don't think so. It will represent
everything.
the gist of the whole discussion. Just you're saying about the poster, so.
Yeah. No. I'm saying a poster that represents everything. So, you know, it's something like it's like a summary in that sense that tries to compress it. You know, so we're trying to compress the 1 hour into 3 or 4 words.
I don't know.
But would
I don't know if we can say intuition and instinct is the same thing.
Yeah, I differ also.
But that's what he said, that the universal attention and intuition are similar.
Similar, not the same. You can't
But
say this
instinct
is that.
different.
Instinct and universal attention is same.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
but they are close.
They are close, but I think it goes back to the distinction between the kind of conscious and like the willing, you know, direction of thoughts and the unwilling, because the intuition is something like your decision making, and the other thing is related to the subconscious reaction.
Yeah, I think instinct is very personal and intuition is universal in a way. That's what I was trying to bring it. Instinct can be very, very personal.
So, would you like to suggest a compression then? How would we compress this?
I'm seeing a rainbow with cracks and holes. Sorry to be. I'm sorry, I'm being flippant.
So you were being flippant.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I was wondering where did this rainbow come from? Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if we need to put ourselves on the spot right now. I just thought I'd throw it there, and if some words occur to anyone, you could just write in. So we'll stop the broadcast here for tonight, and I hope to see many of you for tomorrow's broadcast, which is at the usual time. It's at 9 p.m. again, so it's back to 9 p.m. It was just 7 p.m. for one day, so it's yeah. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. And a good match between Germany and France.